Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all keeping safe and well. It's time for another little monthly roundup as per usual. And this is going to be quite a short one really, so there's not a huge amount to mention this month, to be honest. It has been a busy and eventful month, but not in entirely expected ways. For instance, we've had mice in the house, which is the first time it's ever happened to us. We're obviously very careful about keeping things clean and everything, but they did find a way in. We've made sure that everything's shut away and the pest control people have come in and they put bait down, which is being eaten. So the mice are definitely dying off. Once they stop eating the bait, as it keeps being replenished every couple of weeks, then we'll know that the mice have gone and we can make sure that all the routes that they could get in are shut off. So yeah, it's been interesting in that sense, but obviously not very nice either. And then obviously we've had a snap general election called here in the UK as well. So there is a kind of a running theme at the moment of having to eradicate pests who don't have any concern for human welfare and will cause uncontrollable damage if they're not stopped. That's my opinion of the Tories anyway. We do need to get them out as far as I'm concerned. Your opinion may differ. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I don't want to know who you're going to vote for. That is private. But I'm happy to say publicly as a blogger that I don't support the Tories. I've never voted for them anyway, and I will probably vote for Labour on this occasion. They seem to be the best option. Whether they'll do everything they say, whether they'll be any good or not, I don't know. They're not perfect. No party is. I totally acknowledge that. But we do need a change, and Labour do seem the best option. I like what I've seen of Keir Starmer, and their policies, on the whole, sound okay so far. But we'll see. We've still got like the rest of the campaign to go before the vote goes ahead. So my opinion could change maybe, but it seems to be fairly well set at the moment. I do hope Labour get in. We've got a Labour mayor in London as well, so they can work together. The Tories have always tried to hinder our Labour mayor as much as they can, which has made his job very difficult. But yeah, in terms of why I think the Tories should go, I just think they've made such a mess of things over the past 14 years in all sorts of ways. For disabled people alone, they've shown us such contempt and disdain over the years, and even lately they're trying to overhaul the welfare system and just force people back into work regardless of whether they're capable of doing it or not, and suggesting that we apply for vouchers or send in receipts instead of getting PIP, which would be completely unworkable. And then there's also the United Nations have criticised the country for violating our disability rights in various ways, so it's not good on the disability front alone. But then obviously there's also everything that went on during COVID with Partygate and the mismanagement that led to far too many deaths than there needed to be. There's Liz Truss devastating the economy. There's the fact that millions of people are reliant on food banks now, which we should be utterly ashamed of, and NHS waiting lists are sky high, and the Rwanda scheme is completely unworkable. And it's interesting that he's called the election before he can prove that the Rwanda scheme is going to work. So yeah, all sorts of things like that, and he's had all sorts of missteps in his campaign. He's so good at planning, as he claims, that he didn't tell most of his cabinet or his MPs that he was calling an election in the first place. He caught them all off guard, as well as us. And he went out in the rain without a brolly to announce it, while a protester, Steve Bray, played the Labour anthem "Things Can Only Get Better" in the background, which was brilliant, drowning him out with that. There was a fantastic bit of British humour. And then there's been other little missteps as well in the campaign since then, and ridiculous ideas like national service and things like that. So yeah, I just have no confidence in the Tories, and as I say, I'm not saying that any other party is going to be definitively better, but we absolutely need a change. And as far as I'm personally concerned, I'm happy to give Labour the chance to deliver that change, from what I've seen and heard so far. And if they screw that chance up, then that's on them. That's the way I'm kind of leaning. But whatever way you're going to vote, as I say, you can keep your vote private. I don't need to know who you're going to vote for. But just make sure you do vote in some way. Get on the electoral roll if you're not on it already. Get a photo ID if you need it to vote at a polling station, or apply for a postal vote if you're going to do it that way, or a proxy vote if you need someone to go on your behalf. Whatever way you do it, just make sure you're registered and you've got everything you need to vote, and then cast your vote in some way. And if you don't like any of the candidates, then spoil your ballot. That's just as important, because that then gets counted as a vote of dissatisfaction. Whereas if you don't vote at all, then you don't get counted. You don't get to be part of the statistics, and you'll just be seen as you couldn't be bothered, you're too lazy to vote by those in power. So do get out there and vote if you can. But yeah, that's that boring subject out of the way. I just thought I'd mention it because it's going to be such a dominant subject over the next few weeks that it would be strange and wrong not to acknowledge it's happening, really. It's such a big event in this country. So yeah, that's that out of the way. Let's move on to nicer things anyway. And there's a few bits to mention. There's a theatre show I went to see, and there's a couple of walks I went on that I thought I'd share some imagery from. And then there's also a few bits I've been watching as well. So it's going to be relatively quick, this, but I hope you find it interesting, and there's more detail in the blog post as usual, and none of it's sponsored either. So Yeah, the first thing I'll mention is a theatre show I went to see with my friend Claire, which was Mrs. Doubtfire the musical. And this was good fun. I've seen the film in the past, obviously, with Robin Williams, and this was a good adaptation, to be fair. It's quite a silly story, and it's not the most amazing West End musical in the world by any means, but it's a good fun way to spend an afternoon, to kill a couple of hours. And if you don't know the story, then it's basically about a guy called Daniel who is chucked out by his wife and decides, in order to make money and to keep in contact with his kids, that he will disguise himself as a female nanny and actually go and work there, which he does, and Mrs. Doubtfire becomes very popular. And so, his lie kind of gets more and more complicated to uphold, and, he has to reveal himself eventually. So, yeah, it's a silly story, but it's a fun one. There's a lot of good humour in there. There's some catchy songs in there, as well as some more emotional ones too. We didn't have audio description for this one. There was an AD performance, but we couldn't make that date, but we didn't need it. It was easy enough to follow in this particular instance anyway. So, yeah, if you like a good bit of fun, that's well worth seeing. And yeah, I'll probably watch the film again as well at some point. It's been a long time since I last saw it in my childhood, so it'd be nice to see it again. And then also in terms of theatre, I would just quickly mention that I did an audio description workshop this month as well with audio describer Ros Chalmers. We had worked together last month on delivering a workshop for a group of up-and-coming theatre practitioners, where I talked about what audio description means to me, how it benefits me, the things that go right with it in theatres, the things that go wrong, that kind of thing. And I did a similar thing again this month. So Ros and I again got together and delivered another workshop, and I spoke for about an hour, and answered questions along the way. And I'm not going to say who it was for, but they were very important people in the London theatre scene, and it's great that they wanted to learn more about accessibility and how to develop the audio description for a particular show that they're doing, as well as for shows in general. They were very enthusiastic, very friendly, and very keen listeners, came up with some great questions. So thank you to them for coming along. I'm also being paid for it as well, which is important. So yeah, that was another good experience, and it's great that I'm being trusted to put my thoughts across in a coherent and helpful way. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what comes of that, knowing the show that they're working on. So yeah, that was good. And then next, I thought I'd mention a couple of walks that I've been doing. I don't talk about the walks I do very often because there's not much to say about them. There aren't any photos to share a lot of the time. They're just for me to get a bit of fresh air and exercise and just explore little bits of London that I haven't seen yet. So I try and do a different block of streets every time on the map that I've been filling in gradually since lockdown, when I started recording the routes I was taking. That's been filled in very nicely, I must say. But now the weather's getting nicer, I'm trying to do more scenic walks. Now it's an ideal time of year to do that. And one of the things I really like doing is walking by the Thames. So I thought I'd do a couple of sections of that I hadn't recorded on the map yet. One was a section on the North Bank that I don't think I'd ever actually done before, starting at Canary Wharf and working east. So obviously I've got some nice views of Greenwich on the other side of the river by doing that, with the Cutty Sark and the Old Royal Naval College. And then I also passed an interesting memorial to the victims of the Dudgeon's Wharf disaster in 1969, when an oil tanker exploded, killing 5 firefighters and a construction worker. I'd never heard of that before, so it was interesting to look up the details afterwards. And then I also got some nice views of the O2 Arena as I kept walking around the bend of the river, of course, crossing the Prime Meridian line along the way. And there are occasional instances where you kind of have to walk inland as well. But there's still little bits to see. There's a pub called The Gun, for example, that I passed, and an entrance lock to the Blackwall Basin that was kind of full of green algae, so that was quite a striking sight. And then I finished my walk in Lee Valley Park, where I found one of the 1400 beacons that were lit across the UK to mark the turn of the millennium. So that was an interesting thing to see. And then the following week, I walked along the South Bank, and this was a section I'd done before, but it's always a nice bit. And I went from Greenwich, so right by the Cutty Sark and the Old Royal Naval College this time. They're always wonderful sights. And I passed the Trafalgar Tavern as well, and a pub called the Cutty Sark. And then I also enjoyed great views of Canary Wharf, where I'd been the previous week, across the river. It was quite nice to see it. And as I kept walking around the bend of the river, the view of Canary Wharf kept changing, of course. And obviously I saw the cable car and the O2 Arena, got close-up views of that. And there's also some works of art around there as well, as part of a sculptures trail called The Line. Some quite weird works of art, but interesting to see, as they're quite striking. And then I made my way to the Thames Barrier, where I finished my walk, and that's obviously a very important and impressive structure. So yeah, it was nice to kind of get those walks in. There were nice bits of exercise, and it was lovely weather and everything. And I'll do more of that as the weather improves during the summer, hopefully, fingers crossed. And then finally, just to mention a few bits I've been watching very quickly. The big thing this month has obviously been Doctor Who. The new series of that has started, and it's been very good. Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson are brilliant. They've got great chemistry together and are great actors in their own right, each each of them, and they've been both given a chance to shine so far during this series. I'm halfway through at the point of filming this. So the first episode, Space Babies, was a very silly story and not the best opener, I don't think, partly because it was so daft and partly because they really shoehorned in a lot of the exposition as to who the Doctor is and how he lives his life and stuff. You know, when I first started watching back in 2005, it was kind of more spread out over the episodes, so it kind of compelled you to watch and find out more about the Doctor and just kind of felt more natural as well. But here it was a big info dump, which may have been fine for new viewers. It just didn't quite feel right to me based on what I'm used to, I suppose. So yeah, it wasn't the strongest opener. It was fun in its own way. You know, there's nice bits of humour and the effects are great as always, especially now they've got a bigger budget and everything. So yeah, the shows all look amazing, but it wasn't the most exciting opener, especially given the later episodes in the series that were much better. The second episode, The Devil's Chord, was a lot of fun. You know, Jinx Monsoon was fabulous as Maestro, the villain. A lot of flair and energy with them. And there was a big musical number at the end of that, which was quite catchy, quite an earworm, more so than the Goblin song in the Christmas special, I think. This was a better musical number. And then we had Boom, which was a Stephen Moffat story, the first of his in the new era. And he's also doing the Christmas special as well. And it is great to have him back. Boom was a great story, full of kind of tension and everything, because the Doctor was rooted to the spot on this landmine. He couldn't move for pretty much the entire episode, which is quite a big thing. And Ncuti Gatwa pulled that off brilliantly. And then in the next episode, 73 Yards, Millie Gibson got a chance to shine as Ruby Sunday, the companion, because the Doctor was taken away from her, and that was really, really good. It's a bit of a mind melter, that story, to put it politely, but you know, you don't have to have all the questions answered. Sometimes it's nice to leave mysteries open, and that certainly had a lot of questions in there. It did leave you thinking at the end, so that was a very effective story. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the series so far. We're at the halfway point as I film this, as I say. There are little mysteries bubbling away too, like Ruby's parentage and the fact that actress Susan Twist keeps appearing in various episodes as different characters. Russell was promised as a big finale where a lot of questions are answered, and I know what he's like with that, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then I'll give a big review in my blog at the end of it all, and there will of course be a Blu-ray Steelbook to follow too. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the rest of the series. It's going to be pretty good, I think. And then the other major thing I've been watching this month is Ross Noble's stand-up DVDs, just as I was doing last month, because there's so much material on each of his box sets, because every show is improvised, so he releases multiple shows as well as various extra features and things like that, that it just takes a while to get through it all bit by bit. So I've already posted a review on my blog now of the first 5 of his DVD releases, and I'm doing the next 5 as a part 2 post that I will hopefully get up sometime during June. But I am very much enjoying watching them. He is very funny, very creative, very clever. So yeah, I'm still enjoying watching Ross Noble, and if you want to see my review of seeing him live, then I spoke about that and wrote about that back in March. And then apart from that, the other main thing is Taskmaster, really, which I've spoken about before already, so I don't need to go into any detail this time really, but it's been another fun series, and we've got a new kind of bonus series called Taskmaster Class, where Greg and Alex go behind the scenes and look back at old challenges and talk to former contestants and stuff. So it's kind of a clip show in effect really, but there'll be their own special commentary on it, and we might get some nice insights along the way, so that'll be interesting to see. And then there's been some other announcements on the TV comedy front, like a new Christmas special for Outnumbered coming later this year, a new series of Not Going Out next year, and a new 3-part special of Red Dwarf next year. So yeah, there is some good stuff on the horizon as well, and obviously I've got lots of other things that I plan to watch as well. Got quite the backlog of things that I intend to catch up with. So yeah, I'm still keeping happily occupied. Not looking for any major suggestions at the moment because I've got more than enough to get through as it is. And yeah, that is it. I told you it'd be relatively short this time, didn't I? And I'm sorry if you were hoping for more than that, but you know, it has been a busy month, but just not in ways that I can kind of write or say much about in some ways, really. You know, Doctor Who hasn't finished yet, so I can't give a detailed review of that yet, and I haven't finished going through Ross Noble's DVDs yet, even though both of those things have kept me very happily occupied this month. And the theatre show didn't have audio description, so I didn't have to mention a touch tour and stuff for that. And yeah, I've just been busy in other ways with work and stuff at home, and the election's been quite distracting, that kind of thing. But in June, I have got a couple of theatre shows booked that I'm really looking forward to, and a couple of other things arranged as well. And there may well be other things that crop up. So there will be more to mention next month. But yeah, in the meantime, as I say, I hope you have fun whatever you get up to as well. If you are in the UK, then as I say, do make sure you're registered to vote if you can. You know, as I say, even if you spoil your ballot paper, it's very important that you do cast a vote of some description. It's more important than ever this year, I would say. And yeah, that is it really. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe as per usual. And I will see you for another video very soon. Bye for now.